I think that, meeting my grandfather at a young age and, seeing, Lords and I remember my eyes really opening wide and coming over as a 12-year-old and thinking, this is where it's at. You're constantly doubting yourself, wondering whether it's going to happen. And then you have a good innings and the confidence goes up and you think, yes, I'm going to make it one day. I did feel that they could have persevered with me. I was the right guy. I thought I was the best opener at the time in English cricket and deserved a longer run.
Quick shout out to those of you who have subscribed already, but if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 1.1k before the start of October, so please hit that subscribe button. It is free and it really helps us out. Let's get into this. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Totalsport, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest. We are joined by former England international Nick Compton, who's now doing some stuff with photography, which is very, very cool. How are you, mate? Are you good?
Yeah, very well, thanks, mate, and thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic to have Nick on. Obviously, growing up, Nick was the first. I think you were the first one to replace Andrew Strauss as an opener when he retired. So obviously, that's a very big period in my time as a cricket fan. But we'll start at the beginning. Nick, you're born into a sporting family, as such. So how much sort of pressure was there for you to get into it as well?
I guess there was a pressure, but probably more from myself. You kind of look back and you think, just how much of an impact, having a grandfather that, played for Arsenal, played cricket for England had. And I can't say he had a huge impact, particularly at a young stage, because you're young, you go to school, you see what's in front of you. But I also think that there were various sort of photographs on the wall, and, my dad would have regaled stories. And it only takes one of those photos to really, imprint in your mind, or one of those stories to just click, and that can set off a train of events. And, so for me, it's quite hard to know why I followed that path. Was it because he achieved so much? And I'm sure it did have a big impact, but I also think, I suppose I was born with a little bit of talent, which we all need, in terms of going in a certain direction. And also I was born in a sport mad country like South Africa. So, the two went hand in hand, and, I tried my hand at everything. I love sport, and it didn't sort of take a long time before I realized this is the sort of direction I wanted to go in. And cricket obviously seemed the right path. It was probably what I was best at. In hindsight, I probably should have played golf or tennis and made a bit more money. But I think that, meeting my grandfather at a young age and, seeing, Lords and I remember my eyes really opening wide and coming over as a 12-year-old and thinking, this is where it's at. This is where I want to be. So those were kind of the formative years. And I think they grew those sort of ambitions and that hope of one day emulating what he did.
Yeah. Is there any talking of your grandfather, is there any sort of pieces of advice or coaching advice that he gave you that had a big impact on your life advice and stuff like that?
Not hugely. I think by the age, when I met him sort of properly 12, 13, I mean, he died sort of when I was 13. So, 10, 11, 12, I did see him. I did stay with him in the UK. And, I think he was at a stage where, he was quite an entertainer. He was a very social animal. I spent some evenings in the pub with him, but I was only a young kid and picked up on things, whether they be stories about when he was playing or friends. And he definitely enjoyed a sort of glass of brandy or two at that stage. And I mean, the only thing I do remember was I think he kept the game very simple, unlike me. I think I was someone who was a little more deep, thought a lot more about it. I think that comes naturally with being an opening batsman. I was sitting in the backyard at his house, and my dad was throwing some balls to me, and it was before a game in England. And I was like being very correct, high elbow, all the rest of it. And he just sort of stopped on the porch and said, "Oh, for goodness sake, just hit the bloody thing." And I think, if I'm really honest with you, that's something that definitely stood, the test of time in terms of my career. Because when I did start overcomplicating or thinking about it too much, there were times where you just go, you know what? Watch the ball and hit it. And I do remember him on that porch. I remember it very vividly. And that was a memory that I always had, but it was probably the best advice I could have had for me, because it definitely just made the game a lot simpler. And actually, there's a ball, see it, hit it. And, hopefully your practice comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So moving forward a couple of years, and you're tread a path that quite a few players have taken from South Africa to England, like Peterson, stuff like that. You were a precursor to that, of course. So talk to me about the time that you arrived at Middlesex, and was it a big step for you in your career?
Yeah, it was a big step. I mean, I think the big step was leaving South Africa and coming to boarding school here in England at the age of 15. I was pretty homesick. I won't lie. And I think moving away from your family and, coming to a boarding school where I got a scholarship and, with the view of playing cricket for Middlesex, albeit at age group level, but that was the goal. So there was a fair amount of pressure that I probably put on myself as well. I mean, that's what I wanted to achieve. And, I think going through the age groups, you're constantly doubting yourself, wondering whether it's going to happen. And then you have a good innings and the confidence goes up and you think, yes, I'm going to make it one day. And then you have a bad practice and then you sort of start to doubt yourself again. And I think that's the roller coaster of, particularly at that age of will I, won't I? And, I think even when I did become a professional and get my first contract out of school, there's more questions. Am I good enough to be here? Can I actually make it as a professional rather than just wear the tracksuit? And then I guess, then you get picked for England and it's the same question. And you kind of think, when is this going to go away? When is it just going to become not easy, but when can I just enjoy it? And I think there's obviously some great moments, no doubt. But I think the pressure and the constant need for perfection and for bettering yourself each day was always there. And I guess that's why the top athletes, the elite athletes, keep striving, keep pushing.
Yeah. So in terms of like we talk a lot on this channel about sort of mental health and the way that sport and the pressure of it can impact it. Was something always there from the start, especially in your England career, because there's always constant media pressure that I have to perform here, otherwise it's my fault here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the two things go hand in hand. One is your ambition and what you want to achieve. And I think when you get to that level, of course, that's the goal. I mean, to play for England, I didn't want to be a one test match wonder or fail. I mean, you get to that level and suddenly, yes, the pressure ramps up. Yes, there's more eyes on you. And then suddenly you do compare yourself to other England players and what does success look like? What would mean I did well in an England shirt? In years to come, I'd like to talk favorably about my England days rather than, talk about how I, didn't quite make it or something. And I think those were hard times because I did have some success. I think I did weather the storm and the pressure quite well. But I was also at a time when, it was the start of 12 or 13 opening batsmen in a sort of 5-year period, post Strauss. I was the first incumbent, big shoes to fill, and really enjoyed my partnership with Alistair Cook. And yeah, I think when I got dropped that first time, I felt that I was a bit unlucky. I mean, I did feel that they could have persevered with me. I was the right guy. I thought I was the best opener at the time in English cricket and deserved a longer run and felt that confidence, would have paid off. But, then again, I think you have to look at yourself and realize that, especially when I came in at that age, 27, I wasn't a 21-year-old Joe Root, who had been sort of earmarked for greatness from a young age. It was far more black and white. I was either going to really achieve average 40 plus or have a few bad failures and suddenly you're under the line and you're leaving the door half ajar. And that's really the reality. So I don't have any complaints about that. I think it's fairly obvious. I think everyone knows with cricket, it's very statistical. Numbers do tell you where you're at. If you're averaging 30s, you're under pressure. If you're averaging in the 40s, you're not under pressure. I mean, it's quite simple like that. And as a batsman, you know that. You know what your job is. You know what you're there to do. But I think at the time, also when I came into that England environment, it was a successful team. I was very lucky to play with the likes of Peterson, Swan, Broad, Anderson, all these sort of guys. So the expectations were high naturally. And I think there's a danger that when Strauss retires, you try and replace someone who's as good. And, whether I was as good or could have been as good is another question. I mean, they're sitting here now, I wasn't as good, but I feel that a lot comes into management and how you perhaps give that person time. The likes of Alistair Cook's, Joe, they don't come very often, and if you get a couple, then that's fantastic. But they're 1 in 30, 40 years generation that these sort of players come through. So maybe I wasn't one of those players, but maybe I was good enough to fill a hole and a gap and do my own thing that I felt, had a niche and had a place in the side. So it was difficult to deal with. I think, there were times where I dealt with it better, as I said, and times where I didn't. And I think some of the off-field stuff is probably where those 1 or 2 or 5% can make a huge difference in your performance, because it really only takes that much at that level to be the difference between success and failure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you made your debut in India. So what sort of batting tracks, because you played it all over Sri Lanka, India, what's the perfect one for you? Which would, if you had to pick one now, where would you bat and why?
Well, I would play in Australia without doubt. I think hard and fast, ball flying around my head and very quick bowling was something that I think I felt more comfortable in. And look, was probably one of the reasons why I played cricket. I think it was for that fight, for that, boxing kind of in the ring challenge against, for example, picture a Mitchell Johnson running in at you. I mean, there's adrenaline, there's fear, there's technique, there's courage. And I felt that if I did have a niche or could excel in a certain area, it was in that area. I felt if I played on a more placid wicket that was slower against medium pace bowling, while that's a different challenge and not necessarily any easier, I was in a pool of a lot more players, and you get the likes of Ben Stokes, Joe Root, who are probably a bit more free flowing, and they would probably outdo me in those conditions. But I felt when it was really ramped up and there were other attributes that needed to come to the fore, holding the team together, I thought I was in a small pool, even in world cricket at one stage. And I think that's where I would love to have had more of an opportunity. So, yeah, I think Australia, hard, fast wickets, bouncy, ducking and weaving, pulling, cutting, and really showing a bit of character and fight. I think that's where I was probably best.
Would you say that character and fight was sort of defined you as a player then? And is there many of that around much anymore?
Yeah, good question. I think it was something that I certainly defined myself about. I mean, I think I was quite a technical player. I think you have to be in England, particularly at the top order. You will not get away with it. And I think players who have achieved a lot around the world come to England and struggle. And there's a reason for that. So I think there was a survival mechanism that at times went over the other side of the fence in terms of survival, in terms of maybe the fear dominated of not giving my wicket away. But I also think that, there's the modern language of, looking to score, looking to take the attack to the opposition. And that, of course, comes through a lot of the T20 and a lot of modern day cricket that you see. And the likes of Ben Stokes and these guys who, butlers and stuff are very fashionable, and they take the attack to the opposition. And you definitely need those players. There's no doubt Kevin Peterson was one. Ian Bell was one. But I felt that there was another side to the game. When you break down Test cricket, it's 5 days, and not many games go 5 days anymore. And I think there is a lack of appreciation of that old school, wear the new ball bowlers down, get through the first session and set your stall out to bat for a day and a half. And, that old mentality isn't so fashionable anymore. It doesn't perhaps bring in the big bucks. And I can understand that. Why would players want to put that investment of time and effort to build a forward defense or a leave outside or stump, which are highly skilled, trainable shots? But again, the game has moved so far away from that why would you do that? So I kind of understand that, but I also was quite stubborn, because I held on to those beliefs. I held on to those perhaps traditional values. And I also felt, and if I didn't feel that it still had a place in the game, yeah, perhaps I would have moved away from it as well. But those were my qualities, and that's what I thought. Not everyone can bat that way, but I thought I could really do that well, and every team needed that.
Yeah, definitely. So after, obviously now you're doing different stuff, was photography always something that you liked to do during your playing career, or was it something that you just stumbled on?
No, I think growing up in South Africa, it's a diverse culture. There's a lot of, I mean, beautiful parts of Africa to explore. And my dad, worked as a wildlife TV presenter. We did some traveling to game reserves. Mum and dad were both journalists by trade. So there was always like a creative, inquisitive side to the family, I guess. And I enjoyed art at school, and dad, did a lot of photography in what he did. So I kind of caught on to that probably at an early age, but I also really enjoyed, that travel and the opportunities of experience. An experience could be, going and playing cricket in New Zealand or playing in Sri Lanka, and using the vehicle of cricket, which I was very fortunate to have, to travel to other countries. And I think photography then really connected and resonated with me because, one, it got me away from the pressures of sport. Instead of playing PlayStation perhaps on a day off and sitting in a hotel room, I like to explore the countries I was in. I like to meet the local cultures that I was in, to say, hey, I went to Sri Lanka and I didn't just sit in the Hilton Hotel. I actually, I just met some local people and understood about their life. And then there's the visual side where, it's something you see, seeing a photograph, seeing a piece of art, or seeing an expression or a look on someone's face. There's no better way to get present. And, I think a lot of depression and mental health centers around the fact that it's very hard for people who struggle to be present and to stay present and focused. And it's certainly something I've struggled with, particularly with social media. I got probably quite caught up in that, and I don't think it was very healthy. I use it for photography reasons, but probably spend too much time on it, like we all do, and wasting time. And I think also when you retire from sport, it was a big part of my life. I lost, the thing that I woke up in the morning for. I miss that adrenaline rush. I miss the nerves in some way, and I miss that purpose. And I have to say, the last couple of years, in trying to transition, it isn't that easy, to find that purpose. What am I getting up for? So that's been a challenge, and I think photography has been a major part of trying to fill that void.
Definitely. And finally, to close off, where do you see yourself in the future? What are your ambitions for the future, Nick? Yeah,
good question. Again, I mean, I really enjoy the media. It's a bit of a closed shop, and it's a tough industry to break into. One, I probably feel that maybe the career that I had with England could have been better. I think probably everyone says that, but I do believe it should and could have been better. And I say that putting pressure on myself and being hard on myself, and perhaps if it was a bit better, I think the cricket world, the sporting world can be a bit fickle, that maybe my profile would have been a bit higher and maybe I'd be doing more in the media. But equally, I see the media as an avenue to do some travel, to connect with photography and wildlife and maybe try and do some presenting. I do enjoy that space. So that's something I'd like to sort of continue working. I'm working for a couple of companies and still with Middlesex as an ambassador, which keeps me involved in the game and mentoring younger players. I still enjoy. So, being a director of cricket and potentially attaching myself to sort of trying to achieve a sort of elite performance organization. And I think, leadership development, self-development and elite performance are probably themes that I've, invested a lot of time in. So whether it be in business or back in sport or as a director at Middlesex, for example, that's something I think I could potentially do well.
Definitely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having Nick on with us. Where can we find all your photography stuff? Well, I'm sure we'll leave a link, but where can we find it on social media?
Well, I've got a website, nickcompton.com, but also just Instagram, nick.compton on Instagram. It's I appreciate your support, of course, and it keeps me happy, and I love people writing comments and being able to share some of those moments with them. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, go drop Nick a follow. And yes, I'll address the elephant in the room now. I am in a different background. I know there's a random light over there, so don't complain. It's a new place. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, everyone. And thank you very much again, Nick, for joining us. And yeah, we will see you in the next video. So yeah.